Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers' home opener is tonight against the hated Los Angeles Clippers. We'll preview that game with Darian Viziri, host of Locked On Clippers. That's next on Locked On Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers or Locked On Clippers your first listen of every day, although slight judgment if it's the Locked On Clippers podcast before ours. But, Darian probably appreciates that you making Locked On Clippers your first listen of every day. Either way, make the other one your second listen of every day. Really excited. It is opening night for the Clips. It is a home opener for the Lakers. It is 7 o'clock, a TNT game, and we are here to talk about it. First time doing a crossover episode with Locked On Lakers and Locked On Clippers with Darian Viziri. You know him as Dime Dropper Lakers fans on YouTube and on Twitter. Good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you guys as well. This is exciting. My first time doing a crossover episode with another Locked On channel, and of course, our friends next door. So excited to be here and excited to do this.
It is a strange time. I think, this rivalry, so to speak, has never really lined up particularly well. And it doesn't look like it's lining up very well this year either, based on opening night for the Lakers. Did you catch that Warriors matchup there, Darian? Are you any more or less concerned about tonight's game from a Clippers perspective?
Well, I caught all of it, and I'd say there were two feelings that came through my mind. One, the Lakers, I don't know if they could play worse than, they didn't play terribly, but I think they could definitely play better. And in front of the home crowd, especially coming off a loss like that, I think there's a chance that they play a lot better and play with a little more hunger. But then there's also a part of me that says, man, the Clippers are just a great matchup for these guys. Since Ty Lue has been our coach, we haven't lost to the Lakers. The Clippers haven't lost to the Lakers once. And the versatility that the Clippers have and ability to switch everything, which you saw a little bit of that last night with the Warriors, versus the Lakers, still figuring it out defensively and playing a lot of the pick and roll straight up and relying on AD for a lot. I think the Clippers are going to be able to have a field day if they just knock down shots and play the way I think they can play. But we've seen crazier things, so you just never know.
Yeah, how have actually the Clippers been looking so far? Because they're an interesting team in that they are one of the consensus favorites. Among,
I think I would say they are after Golden State. I think most people either have them, as the second best team. Some people have them as winning the conference.
Right. I was going to say one of the consensus teams to win the championship.
Okay, yeah,
out of the West.
Sure.
But they're in the top handful of most respected, I think considered elite teams in the league. But they're like the Lakers in the sense that they have a lot of question marks about what they are, at full capacity. They've got a lot of health questions themselves. This preseason would have been, I guess, so far your impressions of Kauai when he's been out there, because that's ultimately the biggest question mark with these guys.
Well, he played 2 games, one against the Portland Trailblazers and the other one against Minnesota. And he only played the first half of those games, but he looked more encouraging than I expected him to look, because the first game he was being very aggressive. He got 8 shots up, and he was really trying to take advantage of smaller guys when they were switched onto him and really go one-on-one, which was showing me that he was trying to show people that he's still Kawhi Leonard. And then the second game against Minnesota, he was 4 for 8. You saw him have a nice dunk. You saw him hit the patented turnaround over Anthony Edwards. So I'm actually very encouraged with what I'm seeing from him. The question is, how many minutes is he going to get against the Lakers in the first game? I don't know if I would be very surprised if he got over 30 personally. Ty Lue just said there's no injuries to report. Hearing that for a Clipper fan is an amazing thing.
What about John Wall? Because that, he's obviously missed a couple years essentially worth of basketball. He was connected to the Lakers last season. The reported opportunity that they had to trade for him at the break. They didn't do it. LeBron dropped some not so subtle disappointment in that. But I know Brian and I both felt like that could have been a really risky use of the Lakers' limited assets, given he hasn't been seen on a court in a while. What have been your impressions of Wall?
So going into the preseason, I was team Reggie should start over Wall for the fit purposes and because Reggie's become kind of a cult hero here in Clipperland. But John Wall, he's obviously been an all-star caliber player, and even though he's not at that level anymore, if he's anything close to it, he's definitely better than Reggie Jackson. And he really impressed me in the preseason. There was one game, I think it was the Minnesota game, 20 points in 21 minutes. He still looks like the fastest player on the Clippers off the dribble. He can get into the paint with ease, and I would not be surprised if he had a big game tomorrow. He still has that John Wall kind of swagger and confidence about him, and it looks like he's actually improved his catch-and-shoot jump shot. But at the same time, it's preseason, so we'll see how he looks against the Lakers. But I'm excited.
It's funny, Andy, despite the fact the Lakers have all these undersized guards and stuff like that, I kind of wish, like at the very least, as an off-season edition, as a free agent edition, I wouldn't have minded. I mean, they have too many guys, but like I still, you look at what happened yesterday, and it's not like John Wall solves your shooting problems. But the thing that really disturbed me in watching the game, the opener on Wednesday, and I think that is the contrast, at least on paper, Darian, with the Clippers, is the Lakers just didn't get enough from the supporting cast. The Clippers have a similar question. Who's their third best player? Is it Reggie Jackson? Is it John Wall? Is it Marcus Morris? Like who is the next guy after the two best players? But there is not nearly as much concern over like the quality of the supporting cast and the ability for Ty Lue to kind of put together stuff, at least in the regular season, that gives them a ton of options, and they've got a lot of good players to work with. And, there's no third superstar, but there aren't a lot of holes. So like when you look at that supporting cast and you compare it to what the Lakers are going to throw out there Thursday night, where do you see the Clippers, I assume, having the biggest advantages?
Well, I'm thinking about who's going to be guarding Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, because the way you guys were playing, or Lakers were playing defense, was they weren't switching any of the screens. They were kind of trying to play the pick and rolls straight up with Anthony Davis dropping. And if they do that, that means the guy that's guarding, whoever's guarding Kawhi or Paul George, needs to fight over the screen. And to me, you guys don't have any wings that can really deter them coming over screens. I mean, Anthony Davis, again, is just going to have to be
Darian, let me stop you quickly. We don't have any wings.
Forget in any direction, over or under or anything. They just don't have any.
I mean,
the wings on this team, their ability to navigate screens is the least of the Lakers' concern. They need to surface first.
Yeah, I think just thinking about tomorrow, if you guys think the Lakers are going to play the same starting five?
That's an interesting question that we'll tackle next.
Locked on Lakers and Locked on Clippers.
Both locked on everything.
Both brought to you by BetOnline, betonline.net, your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs, sports info this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts. BetOnline, your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores, the fastest, easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, golf, but of course, the NBA. The Clippers, 5.5-point favorites in tonight's game against the Lakers. Feels generous towards the Clippers. Also, they are third in the league currently, according to our friends at BetOnline, at 7-1 to win the championship. Lakers at 20-1. Russell Westbrook getting 3-1 odds as the first star player to request a trade, just a hair behind Kevin Durant at 2.5-1. You just can't keep those crazy kids apart.
As we said, Andy, I don't think he needs to request it.
And Darian, nobody from the Clippers is getting odds at all because everybody on your team is just so damn happy. Head to the website today, use your mobile device, learn more about the trends in action, bet online where the game starts.
I forgot to mention when I was talking about the guys, it's Norman Powell, it's Terrence Mann, who, little bit disappointing last year, but certainly has a lot of potential. And, Zoo and there's a lot of talent up and down the Clippers roster.
Nick Batum was reborn.
Yes. But you asked about the starting lineup. This was something that Andy and I talked about a lot after Wednesday's game, because I think Lakers fans were hoping Westbrook would come off the bench. I think at this point, it certainly makes sense for him to come off the bench. There was at least some indication that Ham likes him in the starting lineup. He talked about wanting to play aggressively and be in attack mode from the beginning. At the same time, he also mentioned, quote, "This is what we have," so which isn't necessarily a ringing endorsement of Westbrook. Andy, what do you think? I do think they'll tweak it. I just don't know if they'll tweak it with Westbrook on the bench.
I don't think Russ is going to be demoted or put on the bench. I was asking more about, you think they'll replace Lonnie Walker or Patrick Beverley with somebody? Because I think Anthony Davis, LeBron, and Russ are going to be locks for tomorrow. It's the other two guys I was kind of thinking.
I would consider moving Pat Bev only. I can see this two ways. Pat Bev was terrible in the opener. It was just god awful. So on the one hand, you want to get him back in the lineup. You just throw him back out there and get it going. On the other hand, the energy that, and you can maybe, as a close watcher of the Clippers, the energy that Pat Bev is going to bring to this game is going to be off the charts in some direction. And I'm not entirely sure what it's going to look like. He was terrible on Wednesday. What would you expect as a longtime Pat Bev observer? Because the Lakers can't deal with that kind of performance. They need better performances from the supporting cast.
I hope I'm wrong, but there's no way he can play worse than that. And plus, he's playing against the Clippers. And you saw the way he reacted in Minnesota. And now that he's on the Lakers side. And one thing about Patrick Beverley is he will embrace every team he's on to the fullest. And now he's going to act like he's been on the Lakers for 20 years, like he's bleeding on the goal, like he's Derek Fisher or something. And he's going to come out there raw, going nuts to try to agitate some of the Clipper players. I think it would be a poor decision to put him on the bench tomorrow, because there's going to be if there's one person that's going to be super charged up for this one, it's going to be Pat Bev. But having Lonnie Walker as the third tallest guy out there was a little questionable. I saw him as more of a sixth man, kind of replacing Malik Monk's role with the Lakers. What did you guys think of that decision?
I think in part they're looking for Lonnie's athleticism in the starting lineup. Just another scorer that can be out there and take a little bit of that load off LeBron and AD. But also, given, like we talked about before, the Lakers don't have any real wing options, particularly with Troy Brown Jr. still hurt. I mean, you could play Juan Toscano-Anderson, but he's not like a real option as like a 25 to 30 minute night guy. I mean, that's just not the returns will likely be diminishing. I think with Walker, the hope is between his athleticism and his length, he can make up for the lack of height in some of these matchups. You could maybe see Austin Reeves out there as the three, but the truth is he's going to get overpowered in a lot of those matchups too. I mean, the problem the Lakers really have, the Clippers have like 6 or 7 legit playable NBA wings. Literally. The Lakers don't have any. No, not at that level. They don't have.
I'm wondering
any
even,
at the
Andy, if this is one of those games where you start Damian Jones, where you put him in the lineup just to compensate a little bit for that, because you don't have the ability to match up. You don't want LeBron having to who guards Zubats? It's like, how do you arrange things if you don't put a center out on the floor? It just, this is what I was sort of talking about on Wednesday. Like the Warriors with Kevon Looney, it's a kind of a different deal. It's not a traditional center like Zubats kind of is, and you need to pay attention to him. You can't just ignore him. So if you are doing that, then, maybe I guess AD can guard him, and then you put LeBron on Paul George, but Kauai, but now who's guarding Paul George? There's no good way to do this. There may not be no good way to do it anyway. Now that I'm trying to do the math down in my head. there's no good way to do this.
I think LeBron starts out guarding Marcus Morris, and then Pat Bev will try to agitate Paul George. But then there's Kawhi Leonard, and it depends how many minutes he gets. I'm just so excited to see how Kawhi comes out. It's been a year. First couple of minutes of the game, I can see him missing like his first 3 shots and everybody overreacting, but he'll ease into the game.
Okay, let me ask you this though, Darian, because this is something that they talked about a lot. Pat Bev as a 3-and-D, kind of guarding up, sort of whatever. And I understand he's had success. He's guarded KD and he's done all this stuff, and he's an irritant and a pest and all this. How long do you think in a game that Paul George is playing reasonably well, do you think that works for the Lakers? How much can you get away with sticking Patrick Beverley on somebody like Paul George?
I think you can maybe do it. I think it could work for a game, honestly. But over the course of the season, you'll see that those bigger wings or those 6'6", 6'7" guys, Pat Bev, he'll get a couple of steals here and there, but he's either going to really hack them or they're going to just shoot over him. Luka Doncic used to overpower him like crazy. Like he couldn't guard him. And then there have been times where I remember a game last season they played the Clippers, Minnesota did. He got a steal, I think, on Paul George once, but there were other times where he just turned and shot over him, turn around all day long. So he's not the guy to guard wings. And that's one thing I learned with having Patrick Beverley on our team.
Speaking of Paul George, and this is something I wanted to ask you about, so as good a time as any. He recently talked about how Kawhi Leonard is the number 1 in terms of the pecking order on this team. He's the number 2. He's fine with that. There are no egos in play. And in terms of team harmony, like broadly speaking, that's great that Paul George seems sincerely cool with that, and it's not an issue. That being said, though, my observation of Paul George is, even though I don't think he is truly good enough to be the number 1 option on an elite contending team, he's a really good player. I think Paul George.
How are we talking elite contending, though?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not looking for Paul George slander. Like, I actually think he's really, really good. But, there's only a handful of players in the league that are that good. And I don't think Paul George is one of them. But I also think he operates best when he's asked to be that number 1. Like when he's forced to or the way the roster is constructed, he's the number 1. I think that actually brings out the best in him, as opposed to when he tries to sort of supplement his game with somebody else that's the number 1. A, do you agree with that? And B, if you do agree, how do you think the Clippers should best go about getting the most out of George?
I think I used to agree with that after the first season that they were together. But then with Ty Lue came, you saw, I mean, it kind of felt 1A, 1B, but it did feel like Kawhi was the true 1. And in the playoffs, I mean, 2-2 against the Utah Jazz. Both of them are having really good playoffs overall. There were no bad hiccups for Paul George really that year in the playoffs. And obviously when Kawhi went down, you saw him even play better. But it's not like he was playing poorly against the other teams. I mean, both of them kind of underperformed in those first 2 games at Utah. But in the games 3 and 4 against the Jazz, Clippers smacked them off the floor. So, and then against Dallas, they got the job done. Even though it was very nerve-wracking, they got the job done. So the last time we saw those 2 on the court, we never even got to see the finished article. So I'm not going to doubt that Paul George can be that number 2. And I think early on in this season, the first 20 to 30 games, and I've said it on Locked On Clippers a ton, I think Paul George will be our leading scorer. I really do think he'll be the leading scorer because it's going to take Kawhi some time, and I think his minutes will be restricted.
How many games do you expect from those guys? Because when we did our sort of bold predictions for the season, this is obviously, it's a different scale because, the Lakers and Clippers are, short of something weird from the Lakers, competing for very different things. But the sort of basic concern for both teams is identical. The Lakers have huge injury concerns with LeBron and especially AD, and the Clippers can't handle what happened, with Kawhi and Paul George. They need those guys to play 60-something games and be available for the playoffs. How many games do you expect from those guys, and how confident are you that they'll actually be able to get through the season?
Expect is really hard to say because injuries are so unpredictable, but I'm targeting, I've said it over and over, but 60-plus games from each of them. At the very least, 55-plus games from each of them. If we can get that, especially 60-plus, I mean, I think the Clippers, there's no reason why they shouldn't get 60 wins approximately. Like, they've never gotten 60 wins. If there's any Clipper team that can try to do it, it's this one, because with Ty Lue, the one thing I really love about him, he's shown that even when both of them are out, or even one of them is out, the Clippers can still find a way to win games because they're so deep. They play team basketball and they compete. Ty Lue doesn't, like, he gets them to compete. And that's the one thing you want to say about the coach is that he gets the most out of his players. And he totally does.
Yeah, he's a damn good coach.
He is top. Easy top five. Easy top five in the league. Easy.
He was somebody worth giving Luke Walton money to. If I may be so bold, would have been good. I mean, we're both very happy with Darvin Ham
and everything, Andy.
Darvin Ham is going to be good. What do you guys think about the number for AD and LeBron, though, in that same question? What number did you guys say? 60 plus?
Oh, I think LeBron will play 65 games this year. I cannot say I'm confident about that with AD. I'm just not. I mean, it's funny too, because like 65 a few years ago for LeBron doesn't sound like a lot, but A, it is now, but B, like every superstar now, like no star is going to play 78 games anymore.
Speaking of AD, I want to get your thoughts, Darian, on how the Clippers will go about guarding him, because he's had a really good preseason when he's been available. He had a really strong first half against the Warriors, and I don't see the natural matchup defensively for the Clippers against AD, but you may think differently. So talk about that next.
Darian, the Lakers have some matchup issues. You know, again, you mentioned these 7 billion wings that the Clippers can throw at them, and the difficulty the Lakers are going to have figuring out how to match up on that, even to the point of actually needing to deploy that Patrick Beverley plan that Rob Pelinka spoke about so eloquently on Media Day. Great idea for a 6'1", 34-year-old point guard, but sure, why not? Let's do it. How though? To Andy's question, how do they guard AD?
You know, it's funny. Right before you asked that, I was just thinking there is a matchup problem, kind of, that could be on our side. And Anthony Davis has
not our first day, Darian.
Yeah, Anthony Davis has given the Clippers some problems in the past. I think in the LeBron AD era, it's been him that I've been more annoyed by than LeBron. I think we've done a great job with LeBron in his time in Los Angeles. But Anthony Davis, when his jumper's falling especially, can be a problem. And then also his ability on defense. That's the way he affects the game so much on both ends. But thinking about it, I'm not sure who the Clippers will start on Anthony Davis. I think Zubac has had some decent moments against him, but there have also been times where AD just has gotten by him and gotten the better of him. And I think the Clippers are going to try to go small a lot. That's one thing you're going to see from Ty Lue a lot is small ball with Robert Covington, Marcus Morris, Nico Batum, these guys at the 5. And I think Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington are good wings to guard bigs. But again, if they shouldn't be able to guard Anthony Davis. It's all about his aggression and where he's trying to attack from and how much he's trying to take advantage of his size. Because when AD's aggressive, those guys shouldn't be able to guard him at all. But sometimes we've seen AD be a little timid. And that's where the Clippers – I'd honestly just double team him a lot, because just make someone else besides LeBron hit from the outside. Like, just dare you guys to beat us from the outside. That's what I would do. LeBron, same thing with him. When he tries to get to the basket, just make him make the pass, because he's going to make the pass. And just let these other guys try to hit from the outside. Yeah,
I mean, it's funny. Like, I would – at the very least, I'd make the Lakers prove they can hit a jump shot. You know, like, Andy, we didn't even get a chance to really talk about this for Thursday's show, but like LeBron after the game, you know, when you talk about the shooting, Darian, like he was brutally honest. He said, like, we are not built as a good shooting team. Like, we got to keep taking them. We got to keep working on it. You got to believe it. You got to, but like, he made no pretense. Like, Anthony Davis is like, oh yeah, we got a lot of open shots. We'll be okay. Whatever. Darvin was talking about. LeBron just went straight to, yeah, the team as constructed is not good at shooting. So at the very least, I agree with you. Like, not just the Clippers, but every team just sits down in the paint and waits for the Lakers to make a couple threes. And then I would wait for them to make a couple more before I would even consider trying to get out there and risk and doing anything other than collapsing on AD and collapsing on LeBron. I mean, the Warriors ran a little bit of zone. I think the Lakers are going to see a lot of teams doing that and just daring them to shoot over it.
I think there's two optimistic things, though, if I'm a Laker fan, I will say. One, if Patrick Beverley actually gets clean, clear-cut looks at three, he will definitely make some. He's not a bad three-point shooter at all.
True. No. And he was not on the floor Wednesday because he was in constant foul trouble.
Yeah, and then his first shot was like a step-back contested one, which was just unnecessary. And then Lonnie Walker is a streaky player. He's going to have games like that, but there's also going to be games where he plays above what you expect from him. And I just hope that that's not tomorrow night, or I'm sorry, Tuesday night. No, Thursday night.
Thursday night. Yeah, you go. It's hard when you do these ahead of time, trying to play the game where you pretend it's the same day.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, though, when you mentioned that idea of like Batum and Covington getting their cracks at guarding Anthony Davis. It sounds like you anticipate this being a game where Ty Lue really goes deep into his bench, but he's going deep into his bench maybe very specifically about one matchup, as opposed to going through his entire bench, which I just find interesting because you guys have a very good bench. Like your 6 through 10 is a legitimately impressive group to throw out there. So it takes on this double value of what they can do individually, but also how they may be deployed specifically against Anthony Davis.
6 through 11. I think there's going to be 11 players that play tomorrow for the Clippers. And one of them that I think is going to play really well, I think Laker fans are going to be really annoyed with him tomorrow. Luke Canard. He's missed 2 shots in preseason. He shot 45% from 3 last year. And he looks like he's gotten even better at shooting the 3. And remember, he made some big shots against the Lakers last season. The guy's like, he's
that
insane.
first year with Canard with that contract, that looked like it was going to be one of the worst contracts in the league, and then he turned that around quickly. But speaking to that depth, though, with the Clippers, he's the 11th guy with that shooting ability. Literally. Like most teams would have him as a primary part of the rotation just because he's so automatic from 3.
The Lakers kept Matt Ryan on the roster to try to be Luke Canard.
Right. He's like a destitute man's Luke Canard. And like, it just speaks to the depth that the Clippers have this year. And specifically too, like that depth of the type of player that every team around the league wants, which is like, 6'6" to 6'9" wing.
Yeah. I mean, Luke Kennard's a little undersized though. That's the one thing else. He's like 6'4".
6'4", 6'5", something. I'm terrible at remembering how tall.
He'd be like the tallest guard on the Lakers.
He's listed at 6. He's listed at 6'5".
Wow. I mean,
damn giant on the Lakers.
But Terrence Mann, those guys. I mean, Norman Powell. I think those guys will play a little bit more. But Ty Lue said that Luke Kennard's not going to be like. I kept saying he was going to be out of those 11. If everyone's healthy, I think he would be the one that gets the least minutes. But Ty Lue seems like his shooting is just so good that he's not going to be sacrificed at all, which excites me. It's just he has a tough decision. He's got so many good players. It's funny. We're hyping the Clippers up so much in this episode, but if the Lakers win tomorrow, oh my God.
Well, look, here's the thing. Like the Lakers, Andy and I were talking about this on Thursday's show. Like to the extent that anybody is even on the Lakers bandwagon, and it's not super crowded. Like there are still good seats available. Andy, would you agree on the Lakers bandwagon?
Yes.
Like you can get premier seating. People are ready to leap off that thing real quick. Like the reaction from Lakers fans to Wednesday's loss was intense. I had people, texting me over the course of the day. Friends of ours who take this stuff very seriously, who are like, blow it all up, get rid of everyone, figure out like this franchise is a joke. They need to sell the team. I mean, all of it. And if they lose on Thursday, and they very well could, that's one thing. If they lose bad, it's gonna the mood around them is going to get real dark real fast, and the Lakers are going to have to insulate themselves pretty quickly from the sort of outside bad juju. Do you feel that works the same way though for the Clippers? I feel like the Clippers have a much longer runway because the expectation is that they'll be good, but Kauai is going to work his way back in shape, and Paul George hasn't played a ton, and it's, you got to integrate. But ultimately, if they're healthy, they're going to be good. The Lakers don't get that benefit of the doubt. So how much runway do you think the Clippers have? I can tell, Andy, I think you disagree, at least to some degree.
Oh, for me?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
sorry. I think even if the Lakers lose badly against the Clippers, I still think you have to take a little bit of perspective and look and say they're playing against the two, as you said at the top of the episode, maybe the two favorites in the West. You're playing the Portland Trailblazers next. That's going to be a game where the Lakers can get back on track and turn all that negative energy into optimism again. So I don't think even if the Lakers lose on Thursday, it's the end of the world. But the Clippers, as you say, you think they have a longer runway, but then you look at the first 10 games from the Clippers. After the Lakers and the Sacramento Kings and the Suns, you have 2 matchups against the Rockets, 2 against the Thunder, 1 against the Spurs, and another against the Jazz. A lot of people are expecting the Clippers and saying they're going to go 9-1 or 8-2. Honestly, and I usually tend to be a little unbiased with these things. If the Clippers don't go at least 8-2 in their first 10 games, I'm going to be really disappointed. The schedule is cake. They need to take care of it, and that can build some momentum, even with all that stuff you just said.
It's the exact opposite of what the Lakers have.
Literally.
It's funny though. Like I don't disagree, Darian, with what you're saying in terms of the opportunity that the Clippers have in front of them, the way their schedule breaks. But the idea of runway, not necessarily this early in the season or based off this game, but just broadly speaking, 5,000-foot view. I actually think in a lot of ways the Clippers have just as much pressure on them, just as much scrutiny, and as little patience with the Lakers, because the Lakers, ripped everything down to the studs, traded away everything to get AD, and they're in a really difficult position right now, and they may not get as much from it as they wanted, but they at least got a championship. The Clippers have never gotten to the finals during this Paul George, Kawhi Leonard era, which they also sacrificed a lot for, rightly. And I think the moves they've made are all justifiable, but they're so far in a place where they don't really have anything to show for it at all.
It's the first time besides the 2019-20 season that it's been championship or bust here, but even more so this season, because not only do you have the coach that you trust, as opposed to Glenn Rivers, who we didn't. And I think that's one thing we can all agree on, Laker fans and Clipper fans. Glenn Rivers, I don't say the D word.
Not a real doctor. He's not a doctor.
When we talk doc in basketball, there's only one. And so we're going to leave it at that. But there's that level of trust in the head coach, and then the supporting cast that fits the two wings better. Lou Willie, it kind of felt like you're just adding Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to that already 2019 underdog team that played the Warriors. You just subtract Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Gallinari, but they still had Lou, Patrick Beverley, and Montrez. But now you have a supporting cast that was specifically tailored to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and now it's the 3rd year of a new coach. So the Clippers, honestly, you have a decent point. They don't really have that much room for error. Even if Kawhi Leonard's working his way back, they got to hit the ground running. I think if the Clippers go 6-4, people are going to be like, it's kind of weird. They had an easy
Here's
schedule.
the thing, too. Again, big picture, Kawhi is only going to get older and potentially more fragile. Paul George is only going to get older and potentially more fragile. Like, every realistic opportunity that the Clippers have in front of them, you got to treat it like your last, just because, you never know what lies ahead. But you also, I think in their case, in similar ways like the Lakers with LeBron and AD, you got to treat it like your last, because that if they are healthy this season, you could say this is the only year it happens. The same way a lot of Laker fans are saying the 2020 title season, that's the only year you're going to get LeBron and AD healthy. So I think there's a lot of similarities.
I don't disagree. I think you're exactly right about the season-long ramifications of this. I was just talking about like the first 3 weeks. I feel like if the Clippers are Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, Damien. I did not look at their schedule. I was not aware of like how easy the first 10 games. Like the Lakers' first 15 games are brutal. Take away the Portland game, which I don't think is a gimme because I don't think Portland is that bad this year, and the 2 Utah games. Like that is a brutal schedule that they have. And so I didn't look at, exactly at what the Clippers have in front of them. I agree with you. The season-long ramifications for this are really intense for the Clippers. Everything Andy is saying is right. I'm just saying the expectation that they'll get more benefit of the doubt that they will be good if their stars are healthy than the Lakers will. And the potential for toxicity around the Lakers with a 2-7 start, which is very much on the table just because 3-6, whatever it is, just because of the strength of the schedule they're playing, it could be injected much faster than I think it would be with the Clips. That's all I'm getting at.
And especially because of last season, so
right, exactly. And the way, the way the last they've made the playoffs twice in the last decade. And they won a title in one of them, and they were bounced quickly in the other one. You can talk about injuries, you can talk about it. The track record has been terrible. Who wins? Andy? I'll start with you.
Yeah.
I think the Clippers are going to win. This is not a good matchup for the Lakers. And I just think that the inability, I should say, to have guys to counter Paul George and Kawhi Leonard without being so taxing on LeBron or without really asking AD to guard a couple guys at once. I just think beyond it being a tough schedule for the Lakers to open, I just think matchup-wise, this has been a very difficult one for the Lakers. I could see them playing better, though, while losing to the Clippers, but ultimately I think the Clippers are going to win.
I hope they play better. Damien, what do you think?
Darian. But
I'm sorry, Darian.
You're good. Don't worry about it. It takes time for people sometimes. But I think Clippers have to win. I'd be disappointed if the Clippers don't. After seeing the way the Lakers played on Wednesday and how amped up the Clipper players are in terms of knowing the opportunity in front of them. And Paul George has kind of reiterated what Andy was saying about you just don't know how many chances you're going to get. He said it himself. The window is closing. If you have a player in their, quote unquote prime saying that, then you know that you got to take advantage of this opportunity, and they all know it. And that needs to start out with a win against the Lakers to make a little statement and get the season started on the right track. No reason they shouldn't win. Too much shooting, too much size, and too much depth. I think ultimately you're going to say tomorrow that the Lakers supporting cast is just can't match up with these teams that are in title contention.
I'm afraid, Lakers fans, I'm not going to disagree with anybody here. It's just no reason to. I mean, you pick the better team to win. It's not even like, the Clippers have to travel that far to make it happen. I do think, Andy, they will play a little better. Yeah. I don't think the Lakers can shoot, statistically speaking.
I don't think they played that awful in the first half against the Warriors.
But they, the shooting, is really, if they shoot like a regular bad team as opposed to a catastrophically bad team, they stick in this one. But ultimately, I think the Clippers win. Locked On Clippers is where you go to hear Darian Viziri, Dime Dropper on Twitter. Lakers fans, Dime Dropper on YouTube. Make sure to check out his podcast daily as you follow LA basketball all season long. Thanks, man, for doing this. It was really fun to meet you, and we'll do it again.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.